Ashley Bookish Room, and I am back with another video. Today I am here to do my second librarian Q&A. I put up a message in the community board asking people to ask me questions because I plan on doing another Q&A. I did not realize that I was gonna get 85 questions, so it's a lot. I'm gonna try to make it through as many as I can because I know that it's a lot. But I have some snacks here, so I'm gonna be munching while I do this. I have these Verona apricot and raspberry cookies from Pepperidge Farm. I can't speak. Which they're so good. They're really, really good. And then grapes and blackberry ginger ale, which it's really, really good. If you haven't tried it, don't knock it. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we are going to go through the questions from the oldest to the newest, just because I think that's just the most concise way to do it. I don't know if I will get to everybody's question, and some of these questions are repeats of each other, so if I answer it once, I'm not going to answer it again. Please forgive me if I say your name wrong. Be patient with me, but let's go ahead and jump in. So the first question I have is from Jenna JK. I'm exploring, and Jenna asks, what's been the oddest thing you've been asked, information or book-wise? I used to get a phone call from someone who would ask what the weather was on a daily basis, and it was weird at first, but it just became part of the routine. So I knew that when that phone call came in, I would be opening up a tab on Google and checking the forecast for the week for this individual. The next question came from Sydney Tatum. Sydney, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing her last name wrong. And now in the middle of this, I'm going to grab a cookie. But Sydney said, what's one part of the job that a lot of people wouldn't think of when it comes to librarian duties? Everything. People usually think that being a librarian means that you can read books all day, you sit at a front desk and you tell people to shut up, but that's not true. What ends up happening is you do a lot of like one-on-one stuff. In my position, I do a lot of workforce development, so I do a lot of help with job applications, resumes, acquiring housing, interview skills. So I know a lot of people don't think that that is the duty of a librarian. Everybody thinks that it's all related to literacy. And while it is in some way, because there's more forms of literacy outside of reading books, like financial literacy, for example. While that is a form of literacy, a lot of people don't consider that to be part of a librarian's job, which is really, really funny. Okay. The next question is from Sky5 Angel, and Sky5 Angel asks, what are your pet peeves as a librarian? If you walk into a bookstore or a different library than the one you're working in, do you love or hate how they do things? Is there a universal way of ordering, classifying, and labeling books? Okay, so first question, what are my pet peeves as a librarian? When people don't put books back where they find them. So we have this process called shelf reading, where we actually have to go through and read the shelves and make sure everything's in order, and you'd be so surprised how many times you find books just completely just messed up, even though they look organized and neat, and it's aggravating. And now whenever I go into a store, I'm very mindful of how individuals in retail feel, because when people take clothes out and take items out and they don't put them back, and then it's their responsibility to go put the stuff, it's annoying. That's a pet peeve of mine. Usually I don't really pay attention to how other libraries, well, first of all, I rarely ever visit other libraries outside of my system because my system is so big. So in order to not go to another library in my system, I would have to leave the county, which I don't leave the county like that unless I'm going to go see my parents, but that's a different scenario. And is there a universal way of ordering, classifying, labeling books? Yes and no. So system-wide, yes. Most libraries within their system, they're going to make every location, every branch that they have do the same classifying systems. But when you go from county to county or state to state, no. It's probably not going to be universal because everybody does things differently. I've seen some libraries that label fiction as FIC, and there are some libraries that label library books for fiction as F. There are people who still use Dewey Decimal. There are people who don't use Dewey Decimal systems anymore. It really does vary. And as far as ordering, I think there's another question in here from Bree. Hey Bree. I think there's another question in here from Bree, which I will get to, about ordering books. I don't think there's a universal method, as in like how people judge what they're going to order, because that comes down to county and state. But as far as some of the systems, a lot of us use the same leasing companies to order a surplus of books. That way we're not taking so much money out of our own pockets to supply the libraries with books. So libraries do lease books, meaning that we pay to rent books for people to use, which is cool. Okay, so Lucy M asked, how do you choose which books to get? Also, how could libraries improve to be more accessible and inclusive? I do not work in our collection development department. Our collection development department, and usually most libraries do have a collection development team, they're the ones who make the decisions on what books to order. So I don't necessarily always get to choose. I do get the luxury as a teen librarian to say, oh, I saw that this book was coming out. You know, is there any possible way we can order it specifically from my branch? But what I think they use is like reviews. They use different software that lets them know what's moving in and out of the collection, what authors are the most popular, because you want to continue to buy books that you know are going to circulate, because it's a numbers thing. You want those items to circulate. It shows them that the library is being used. So you always want to pick things that you know are going to move. You want to pick the popular things. But we do have a system, and I think most libraries do, where we allow patrons to request to purchase things, which I think is pretty cool. So it's a more complicated system that I really don't have 100% insight into, because that's not my end. I think in a larger system, what you're going to see is that departments are a lot more specialized, and you won't find too many of us taking over multiple jobs. So because A, I work at a branch, I do not work at our central location, and B, I'm not in the collection development team, I don't get as much leeway in saying what can and cannot be purchased, because it's not my job. Okay, next question. Hannah's Books asked, perhaps this question is too technical, but just a minute ago I was speculating about it with my spouse. How do librarians apportion space on the shelves? Do you guess how many books in each section will be checked out and then make room for the rest? Or do you need to leave enough room to shelve all the books the library owns, or something else? Okay, so this whole answer has multiple parts to it. Yes, collection development does have a method in which they're able to estimate how many books can fit on the shelf, okay? Now, are sometimes those estimates wrong? Yes, because some books are smaller than the average book, some books are larger than the average book. So we have this thing called shifting, and it sucks. Nobody likes shifting, because what ends up happening is like you move books, like an entire shelf can start shifting just so you can make room. Sometimes we have too much space, so those books end up on a cart and they go into the back in the workspace where nobody in the public can see it. Sometimes we have extra space at the end of a shelf, so we have books that will face out, and sometimes we have no room at all, so we get stupid creative with how our books are displayed, whether they're like on top of the shelves, whether we put displays up to account for the extra stuff that we have. It gets really fun, but it can be very like, I really don't want to do this. I think everybody universally hates shifting, because moving that many books to adjust just to be able to fit 5 books on the shelf sucks. Okay, the next question is from Emily, and Emily asks, do you feel like community outreach is a big part of your job? Yes, it is. It is the most important part of my job. Let me think offhand, when we were at work full time, I was probably doing outreach 2-3 times a week. And it's important to build those community relationships so people know what services you offer. It's super important because it's just a way for you to better support the community that you're in. I don't think any librarian will ever say that libraries should work independently of the communities that they're in, because your job is to serve the community. So you have to get to know your community in order to do your job well. Okay, so Kit said, hey, I started work at a library just before the lockdown started here in the UK. So I only did 1 day at my library. I start back next week. Do you have any tips for me to be a great librarian? Okay, well, congratulations for starting your job as a librarian. Tips, be patient. I don't know what type of library you're working at, and that makes a difference. But if you're like me, if you work with the public, patience is key. Patience and flexibility, because I've worked in a library for almost 5 years now, and no day that I've ever worked has ever been the same. It's so different because you work with different people every single, I mean, you have your regulars, of course. That's with any business, but you never know who's coming in. So you have to be flexible, be patient, and have fun, enjoy it. I think being a librarian is one of the most rewarding jobs that's out there, because you're really helping people, you're sharing love for literacy, you are serving your community. It's just a great job. All right, the next question is from Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin. Hey Gavin, do people come to you for recommendations? As a bookseller myself, I didn't know you were a bookseller, that's cool. As a bookseller myself, people ask me for recommendations. I spend 10 minutes recommending things and then get something totally different. Does this happen to you? Yes. And I feel your frustration through that question. Yes, it has happened to me. A big part of my job, y'all, as I always say, is reader's advisory. And reader's advisory is nothing more than book recommendations. So I think I said this in a vlog that I'm currently doing. When people are like, oh, I like your recommendation. It's literally part of my job. So that's probably why it may seem like I'm well versed in giving recommendations, because it is my job to be able to give recommendations and to sell a book to a person, even though I'm not technically selling it because it's a library, but it is my job to essentially sell the book to the patron to check out. And I've spent like 30 minutes with people before for them to be like, oh no, I'm good, I don't think I'm gonna take anything home. And they're like, are you serious? So yes, I have been in that position. Yes, it is frustrating, but reader's advisory is like the most exciting part of my job. I love doing reader's advisory because then you get to expose people to books that they've never even heard of before. Okay, I think I may say this wrong, so please forgive me, but Sharia asked me, fewer and fewer people seem to be turning to the library nowadays to borrow books or read. What are your thoughts on this? That's a yes and no. Libraries are not becoming extinct. I don't know why that narrative keeps getting pushed, but they're not. Libraries are super relevant and still super important right now. Services have changed. People still use a library to read, believe it or not. People do not check out physical books as much, I don't think. I think there are people who are like most of us in the booktube community. They like to have the physical book. Like, those are your like super avid readers. But a lot of people now are using digital services. So Hoopla, Libby, Overdrive, Cloud 3M, Zeno, Flipster. People are now using those more than I think sometimes physical books. And sometimes you have communities that don't read as much. Like I've worked in 2 communities in my time of being a librarian. One place was an area where a lot of people read. People loved books. People were just all about books. And you know, now I'm in an area where we're working on encouraging more literacy, but I don't know if I agree with that statement because I see it firsthand, if that makes sense. The next question is from Reads. I like your name. What's a librarian's schedule? Oh, child. There is no universal schedule, so I can't really answer that question. And I think I've mentioned my schedule once, but I don't like talking about my schedule I don't like because people guess where I live or anything like that. I just don't like putting that information out there like that. And that's even at my job. I don't tell patrons what my schedule is because that can get kind of dangerous. I will say this, a librarian schedule usually follows the operating hours of their system. So most libraries, from what I see, and this is big systems, smaller systems usually have their hours are a little different. From a lot of big systems that I've seen, the hours are usually from like 9 to 8 or 9 to 9. And then their hours are a little different on the weekends, and Sundays are usually the days where the hours are super cut back for most systems, but your schedule will always fit within whatever the opening and closing times are for the library. So you probably won't ever come in too far before the library opens. You don't stay super late after the library closes because there's technically nothing really to do. Okay, so this next question is from Terrell Wrights, and this is a long question, so let me take my time and read it. It says, what's one thing you wish you knew before becoming a librarian? Actually, I'm just going to answer it as I read through. One thing I wish I knew, it is a rewarding job, but it can be tiring, because that constant human interaction where you're always in a pristine customer service like type of attitude where you're friendly, you're being, welcoming, you have a smile on your face. It is exhausting, not because you don't want to be kind to people, but having that energy all the time does make you tired. And I think people think, oh yeah, you sit at a desk all day, you read and that. No. I'm literally helping people every day. So I wish that sometimes I would have known that my energy would have been a little depleted. What's the most annoying thing about your job? Honestly, and this is the God honest truth, there's nothing annoying about my job, honestly. And I love my job that much. Like, I don't know how I can explain it to y'all, but I don't ever want to do anything else. I love my job. How do you prefer book requests, a very specific kind or the broader, more open? Either or, doesn't really matter to me. There's pros and cons to each. Do you have any team programs? If not, would you ever want to do one? Yes, we have team programs. I'm a teen librarian. This is part of my job. If you could change one thing about your library, what would it be? Nothing. Nothing. My library director is bomb. That's why I say nothing. Because everything is always on par. It's always good. How does a library card system work in the States? Does it cost money, and does it work across multiple states? No. It does not work across multiple states. In fact, it doesn't work across counties. So if you live in one county, you cannot take that library card unless you're in a state where it's like a tri-county type thing. I have seen that, where it will work in 3 counties because the 3 counties are working together. However, if your counties work independently, no, you cannot use your card in another county. You cannot use your card in another state. It does not work like that. It would be too hard for accountability purposes to do something like that. And no, you do not pay for your library card because taxes. So state and county taxes pay for your library cards. If, however, you want a library card in a different county or a different state or whatever the case may be, you usually have to pay a fee based on how much the average person is paying in taxes per year for their library card. And the last question that they had was, have you ever lost or broken a library book? Can I choose not to answer? Yes. Since I've been older, no. When I was younger, yeah, I was cleaning out my parents' house during this time during COVID, or no. After I had my daughter, my dad was cleaning out the garage, and there were some books in there that were library books. So yeah. The next question is from Luna Marina, and they asked, could you talk about the process of how you were able to decide on an online university to study your MLIS? I didn't have to go through a process because the school that I went to for my bachelor's and my first master's degree had the program, so I didn't really have to make a decision because that was my alma mater already. So it was easy for me in that sense. How can I decide and make sure that I'm choosing the best school? I would look up reviews for the program, honestly. I would definitely consider making sure that they're ALA accredited. That's going to be super important. So make sure that the American Library Association, if you are from America, and I'm making that assumption, if you are from America, make sure that they are accredited by the American Library Association. If not, it's a no-go. Finances, you need to make sure that you're able to afford it, or if you take out a loan, that you're able to think about how that's going to impact you student loan wise. See what classes they offer. Most online programs, or most universities anyway, regardless of whether you're online or not, will tell you the classes that you can take. Think about Whether you want to be in a public library, academic library, or you want to be a media specialist, or you want to be a medical librarian, or whatever, make sure that you see classes that are going to be geared towards what track you want to take. So like for me, what was really important about my program was that I knew I wanted to either be a children's librarian or a teen librarian. So it was super important for me to figure out whether they were going to have enough classes to really teach me the important tools I needed to become either one of those. You know, if they didn't have those classes, you know, it was kind of be like, that would be a waste of money. And the last question that Luna had was, I work full time and financially I cannot quit my job in order to do my master's. What options do you recommend for people who still need to pay their bills and survive, but want to further their education? There are scholarships and grants out there. So if you go to the American Library Association's website, there are scholarships and grants that you can apply for. There's also scholarships and grants that 9 times out of 10 are going to be available through your college or university. I worked full time and did school full time, and I was pregnant my final semester of school. So it can be done. I will say that it's not easy, so you may need to pace yourself. There were a couple times when I was super scared of burnout, because I was literally taking 3 graduate classes and working, you know, a typical 9-to-5 job. Meaning I was at work all day, and when I came home, I was hitting the books and reading and doing this, or I was using my lunch break. It takes a lot of time management. It takes a lot of drive. And I tell people now, be kind to yourself and take it, because part of me, I'm happy that I did it that way because I had my daughter and I didn't have to worry about being a single mom and having my kid and being in school and working full time. But I know for a lot of people, like I have friends that are in the program right now and they're doing 1 or 2 classes at a time. It's not a race to the finish line. You don't have to rush to finish your degree. Take your time, and whatever you see fit, do it that way. If you can't financially afford to do 3 classes at once, then, you know, see how you are financially able to maybe do 1 class at a time, and maybe do like 1 class a semester and then a class during the summer. You just figure out what's best for you. You don't have to quit your job, because I didn't quit my job. I didn't at all. It was hard, but it can be done. The next question is from Alex, and it's, what did your MLS not prepare you for? The human interaction. I think that your MLS or MLIS prepared you a lot for the technical stuff, a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, a lot of readers advisory, a lot of how to survey and observe and you know, get to know your community, but they don't prepare you for the human interaction. I think that just comes with practicing customer service skills, and I know that my school didn't necessarily teach me customer service skills. It's just something that, you know, your library will teach you, or something that you gotta focus on learning yourself. Okay, so let's keep it moving. I'm seeing some questions that are kind of like getting a little, they're similar. So I'm gonna look for one that's a little bit newer. What's your favorite, and this is from Ashton, what's your favorite type of book to recommend? Nonfiction, kids books, sci-fi, etc. Probably kids and teens, because I am very much about literacy and youth. That's a huge thing for me, especially in young Black boys. That's a big thing for me, because out of all the age groups and racial groups, they're less likely to read. So anything that I can recommend to them, I'm happy about. You know, I can get some of my younger Black boys and my teen Black boys to pick up a book. I feel really good about that. Okay, this one came from Danica. Maybe comparing different library jobs, academic, public services, cataloging. How do you decide which one is best for you? I would do research on each one, or you know, you can contact, y'all. I think people don't know this. If you're interested in becoming a librarian, you can contact your library and ask if you can shadow or something, because sometimes you won't know that you will or won't like a position until you see it firsthand. First of all, for me, I knew I never want to work in an academic setting, because academic librarians are very much about their research, and I'm not. I did 2 master's degrees, okay? The research thing, I don't want to do that no more. Cataloging, I would have an interest in that, I'm not gonna lie. Cataloging is fun. Public, for me, it's a little different. I'm sorry, I'm kind of going around the bush with this question. For me, it's a little different. I was working in a library prior to getting my degree. Now, I didn't know what I wanted to focus in on, but I knew that I liked working in a public library because I like working with the public. And there's no limitations on who can and cannot use my services. With a media specialist, like in a school setting, you're only helping whoever's at that school, the kids at the academic. You're mostly going to be helping students and other professors, you know, health services librarian, working in the health field, business librarian, you're working in business. I wanted to be able to help as many people as I could, and there was no limit on the specialty that they need, like meaning that, you know, I could have a college student walk in, I could have a business person walk in, I can have kids from so many different schools walk in. So that was a seller for me. I just knew that I liked that environment. Now when it came to youth services, it took me working for about a year to figure out that I really wanted to do the youth services track in my program. And that's just because I think youth are easier than adults. And I'm that weird person that thinks that. I really think they are. Youth see the world with a fresh pair of eyes. They're not stuck in their ways like we are as adults. So you just have to ask yourself what you personally enjoy, what you don't enjoy. I don't know how to say your name, but you comment so much. I feel like we interact on Twitter too. But it's STVJFUL, and I don't want to say that because I feel like I'm going to mess that up. But the question is, what is the strangest or most shocking thing to have happened to you while working in the library? You would think, I think I've had a pretty normal experience being a librarian. I really haven't had anything shocking, to be honest, and that's me telling the truth. I haven't had anything, I mean, outside of the strange phone calls. Follow-up question, this might be, what's the nicest or most memorable moment? Okay, so this is what I always share with people. I'll never forget the day that I was helping a person that had moved from Alabama to my state. And they were looking for a job. And they needed help with their resume. They needed help with the job application. And this individual was so pressed for time and they really, really needed the job. And we sat down for like 2 hours and worked on all this stuff. And the next day they came back and told me that they got the job and they were really appreciative because it was clutch. They really needed that job. So they made me feel really, really good. So it was like a really nice moment. Okay, so this is not really a library question, but I will answer it. This is from Cows Lane 1. I was wondering how you handle reading multiple books within a set time frame. Do you read one at a time or can you read them simultaneously, say by reading a chapter from each per day? I read simultaneously and I read a set amount from each book a day. I try to. It doesn't always work, but that's how I do read multiple books at the same time. Okay, so this next question, and y'all, I think I'm gonna have to do this video in a couple different parts. So I'm gonna do about 5 more questions, and then I'm gonna have to film another part of this because this is gonna be super long if I go through all 85 questions now. Let me just do 5 more. The first one is from Mo. Are you ever asked to do the curator aspect of your work or for private clients? Or does the degree only teach one about the more techie aspects of the job? And so, is that what you stick to? No. I don't do anything curation wise. I work in a public library and we have a local archives, but I don't do any type of curating or anything like that at all. I've never had that experience. The next one is from Kat Kaylee. Can you explain your journey to becoming a librarian and tips for anyone wanting to become a librarian? Okay, I talk about this and I'm gonna link these videos. I talk about this in how to get your MLIS and also a day in a life of a librarian. Those 2 videos are gonna answer that question because I go into detail in both of those videos. 6 minutes for me asking which title or titles have you recommended the most to readers over your career? I couldn't even tell you. It's been an X amount of years now, so I can't remember. Actually, that's a lie. I push Percy Jackson on a lot of my middle grade boys and girls too, but especially for my boys that come in and are reluctant readers, I push Percy Jackson hard. Y'all gonna let me sit right here and eat all these cookies? Let me limit myself. I'm gonna sit here and eat this whole entire thing of cookies. I can't do that. And these are gonna be the last 3. I know I said 5, but I think that's 6. Destiny B asks, I know for some librarians you have to have a master's. Did you complete a master's program? Yes, I did. Some libraries are moving away from the master's degree requirement because it is limiting individuals that could possibly be working for libraries right now. I talk about it a little bit in my Where Are All the Black Librarians video. I'll just link all the videos that I've done about libraries. I'll just make sure I link that stuff down below. But yes, I started working in the library first before I completed my master's stuff. Bree, how you decide which books to order for a library? I don't. Collection development does. I talked about this a little bit earlier. And they have tools. They have programs to look at what books are moving the most. They use popularity. They use reviews. All that stuff. So they have a system that they use. Now, can I request stuff? Like I said before, yes, I can. I can request stuff. They do all of the ordering. I don't get into too much of that. What's your favorite or most memorable program? And if money were no object, what program would you run? And the last question is, what do you think keeps patrons away from the library? And this is from Lydia. My most favorite and memorable program, I'm gonna say 2. I did a anti-Valentine's Day party, which was huge. Kids love the anti-Valentine's Day party. And I also did a Black History Month party, which it was called House Party. If you guys have ever seen the movie House Party, that was really, really fun. If money were no object, I would do a family cookout and kickball tournament. Supplying all that food and prizes for like games and stuff, it's a lot of money. You know, I think people's misconceptions of the library is what keeps them from the library. Because people think that librarians are mean, that libraries are dusty, that all we do is offer books to read. Y'all, libraries now are becoming places where people can do things like woodworking, okay? And there are libraries that have green screens, libraries that check out lighting equipment and DSLR cameras. So I think people stay away from libraries because they don't know about what libraries offer. And they have these outdated perspectives and views of libraries. All right, y'all, so I'm gonna stop there because this video is probably already gonna be about 25 or 30 minutes, which is gonna be a lot to edit. So what I'll do is this will be a Q&A part 2, and then I will go back and I will keep using y'all's questions for reference. So don't feel like I haven't gotten to your question, or I'm not gonna answer your questions. I will. I just think I need to, because there's so many questions. I didn't realize it was gonna be, first of all, I've been looking at y'all's questions, but I've also been doing other things, so I haven't been able to look at them the way I wanted to look at them. So a lot of these questions are super, super in-depth questions, and I want to answer them as thoroughly as possible. So to do that, I'm going to make sure that I break it up. So we're probably looking at another 2 or 3 of these videos, which I probably will end up just doing like once a month. So this will be the part 2, and then next month I will do another one, and then we'll do another one. If there's questions that you want to add, if you have follow-up questions to anything that I've answered, leave them down in the comment box below, and we'll just add them to the list of questions that I already have. But I'm glad that you guys are enjoying this. I'm so glad that so many people decided to ask me questions. I really love my job, and I think that I really want to get rid of any type of misconceptions that people have about libraries, because libraries are great places. They're amazing places. I love libraries, and your librarians are not what you think they are. I'm a librarian. I know that we, you know, have this stereotype of what you think we look like and what you think we do, but it's not true. So I'm glad that we are able to have these conversations and kind of break these barriers about what people think about libraries. That is it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button. Remember, I upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and my mouth is so dry. Oh my gosh. Anyway, that's it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button. Remember, I upload every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I will link all of the Librarian videos down in the description box below so you guys can check those out. And like I said, any questions, just let me know in the comment box below and I'll be back with another video soon. Bye.